Story 9. The library with no books. The building looked abandoned, its windows dusty and cracked. But the door opened easily, as if inviting me in. Inside, there were no bookshelves, no tables, just endless empty space. Yet the air smelled like old paper and ink. A soft voice whispered, "Ask a question." My heart pounded, but I whispered, "What will I become?" Suddenly, glowing letters floated in the air, forming words. "You will not find what you seek in mirrors." The letters faded, leaving me trembling. Curious, I asked another question. "Will I be happy?" The letters returned. "You already are, but you don't believe it." I turned to leave, but the door was gone. I spun in panic, and the letters floated again. "Do not fear. Knowledge is a maze." The floor beneath me shifted like a puzzle piece. When I stepped forward, I was outside, sunlight on my face. The building was gone, but I still smell ink on my hands.
Story 10. The Mirror Hotel. The hotel lobby gleamed like glass, every surface polished to perfection. The concierge greeted me with a nod, handing me a silver room key. When I reached my room, I froze. The entire room was a mirror. Walls, ceiling, even the floor reflected me endlessly. I set my bag down, but the reflection didn't. My mirror self just stood there, staring at me. I stepped closer, pressing my hand against the glass. My reflection smiled. I screamed and stumbled back. The reflection stepped through the glass, into my world. Finally, it whispered, taking my hand. I felt dizzy, like I was falling backward. When I woke, I was inside the mirror. I pounded on the glass as my reflection zipped up my bag and walked away. Now, I wait in the Mirror Hotel, watching guests come and go. And one day, maybe, I'll smile at the right person. And step out.
Story 11. The train that never stopped. It was late at night when I boarded the last train out of the city. The platform was empty, and the conductor didn't ask for my ticket. The train rumbled forward, its lights cutting through a dark countryside. Hours passed, yet we never reached a station. I asked the conductor when we'd arrive. He simply said, "We don't stop for the living." My blood ran cold. I looked around and noticed the other passengers. Their faces were pale, their eyes empty, their clothes decades out of style. One turned to me and whispered, "You shouldn't be here." Panic surged through me. I ran through the cars, desperate for an exit. But every door I opened led to another identical train car. The train roared faster, the windows showing nothing but endless night. Finally, I collapsed in exhaustion. The next thing I knew, I was back on the platform, the morning sun warming my face. The train was gone. In my pocket was a crumpled ticket stamped, "Return trip pending."
Story 12. The Painter of Dreams. I first heard of her from an art collector who spoke in whispers. He said she painted dreams, your dreams. Skeptical, I visited her studio. She was a frail woman with silver hair and piercing blue eyes. She handed me a blank canvas and told me to sleep. I woke hours later to find a painting of me, standing on a cliff, surrounded by black waves. "It's beautiful," I said, though fear gnawed at me. She smiled. "It's not a dream, it's a warning." A year later, I stood on that cliff, waves roaring below. Lightning cracked the sky as I lost my footing. But I stepped back just in time, her painting flashing in my mind. When I returned to her studio, it was empty. No paintings, no sign she'd ever been there. But every time I close my eyes, I see her brushes moving, painting my future.
Story 13. The Door in the Lake. The lake was calm, the water like glass under the summer sun. I rented a small rowboat and paddled toward the center. That's when I saw it. A door, standing upright on the water's surface. No frame, no wall, just a door. Curiosity burned in me. I reached out and turned the knob. The door opened silently, revealing a glowing tunnel. Without thinking, I stepped through. Suddenly, I was standing in a bustling city. Flying cars zipped overhead, and towering skyscrapers shimmered like jewels. A woman with glowing eyes handed me a map and said, "You shouldn't be here yet." Before I could speak, she pushed me backward. I splashed into the lake, the door gone. But I still had the map, written in symbols I don't understand. And every time I hold it, I hear whispers calling me back.
Story 14. The Clock Tower That Counted Backward. The old clock tower in my hometown never worked right. Its hands spun backward, ticking in reverse. Locals treated it like a harmless oddity. But one day, I stood beneath it at midnight. The world around me slowed. Then, everything froze. I could move, breathe, think, but the world was still. Curious, I climbed the clock tower. At the top, a glowing pendulum swung backward, humming softly. I touched it, and time snapped like a rubber band. Suddenly, I was a child again, standing outside my parents' house. Terrified, I ran back to the tower. With trembling hands, I touched the pendulum again. Time lurched forward, and I was back in the present. But now, the clock ticks slower every day. And sometimes, I wake up in moments I thought I'd forgotten.
Story 15. The carnival that appeared at midnight. I was driving home late when I saw colorful lights flickering in the distance. Curious, I followed him to a carnival that hadn't been there yesterday. Music floated through the night, cheerful and haunting. I bought a ticket from a clown who never blinked. The rides spun faster than any ride should. The games were impossible, yet I won every time. A fortune teller beckoned me into her tent. She stared into her crystal ball and gasped. "You're not supposed to be here," she whispered. Before I could ask what she meant, the lights flickered. The carnival vanished. I was standing alone in an empty field, holding a stuffed bear I didn't win. Sometimes, when I drive that road at night, I hear faint carnival music. And I know if I follow it again, I might never come back.
Story 16. The restaurant that served yesterday's meals. I found the little restaurant by accident, tucked between two shuttered shops. The sign read, "Yesterday's Specials." Inside, the smell of home-cooked food made my stomach growl. A kind waitress handed me a menu with no prices. I ordered a bowl of soup, and when it arrived, I froze. It was my grandmother's soup recipe, the one she made when I was a child. I hadn't tasted it in years, not since she passed away. I asked the waitress how they made it. She smiled sadly and said, "We only serve memories here." The next dish was my father's favorite steak, cooked exactly how he liked it. Each bite brought tears to my eyes as forgotten moments flooded back. When I asked for the bill, the waitress handed me a small clock with no hands. "Come back when it has time again," she said. When I stepped outside, the restaurant was gone. But every night, I wind that clock, hoping to taste yesterday once more.
Story 17. The girl in the yellow raincoat. It was pouring rain when I saw her, standing alone at a deserted bus stop. She wore a bright yellow raincoat and held a red balloon. I offered her a ride, but she just shook her head and smiled. Something about her seemed off. I drove away, but when I glanced in my rearview mirror, she was gone. The next night, I saw her again, in the same spot. This time, I stopped and asked if she needed help. She pointed at a street sign I didn't recognize. When I turned to look back at her, she had vanished again. Curiosity consumed me, and I searched for that street. I found an abandoned road lined with wilted flowers and faded photos. A newspaper article revealed that a little girl in a yellow raincoat had gone missing there decades ago. That night, I drove by the bus stop again. She was there, balloon in hand, smiling at me. I smiled back, and for a moment, I swear she whispered, "Thank you." The next day, the bus stop was torn down. But every time it rains, I see a yellow raincoat in my headlights.
Story 18. The elevator that skipped floors. The office building was old, with peeling paint and flickering lights. One night, I stayed late and took the elevator down. But when I pressed lobby, it stopped at floor 6.5. The doors opened to a dimly lit hallway lined with doors. No numbers, no signs, just silence. Curiosity got the best of me, and I stepped out. The air was thick, heavy, like I was underwater. I opened one door and saw a version of my office, completely empty, covered in dust. Another door revealed a bustling room full of strangers in clothes from the 1800s. Terrified, I ran back to the elevator and slammed the lobby button. It took me back, as if nothing had happened. The next day, I asked the janitor about floor 6.5. He stared at me with wide eyes and said, "No one talks about that floor." Now, every time I ride that elevator, I keep my eyes shut tight. Because I know if I look, the doors might open again.
Story 19. The town that fell asleep. I arrived in the small town just before sunset. The streets were empty, shops closed, houses dark. I knocked on doors, but no one answered. Finally, I found an unlocked house. Inside, a family sat frozen at the dinner table, their food untouched. Their chests rose and fell slowly. They were alive but deeply asleep. I called for help, but my phone had no signal. As I explored the town, I found dozens of people asleep in strange places, on benches, in cars, even standing in doorways. At the center of town was a clock tower. Its hands were stuck at midnight. Curiosity pulled me to the top, where I found a glowing orb inside the clock. It pulsed like a heartbeat. When I touched it, the clock hands started ticking. Suddenly, I woke up in my car, parked at the edge of town. The sun was rising, and the town looked perfectly normal. But I still feel that orb's pulse in my chest.
Story 20. The man who lived in photographs. I first noticed him in an old family album. A man in a suit, standing in the background of a picture of my grandparents. At first, I thought nothing of it. But then, I found him again, in a photo of my parents as teenagers. And again, in a picture of me as a baby. Always in the background, always watching. I searched through hundreds of family photos. He was in all of them. I showed the pictures to my mother. Her face went pale. "That's impossible," she whispered. "We don't know him." I took a photo of myself in the mirror. When I looked at it, he was standing behind me. I turned around, but the room was empty. Now, I avoid mirrors. And I haven't taken a photo in years.